Hey there! If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. I'll say that again. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast. Oh, yep, with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Now it's time for the Big Bad Broadcast.
Okay, quiet in here. Mic check on Graham Nash. Do the countdown. And go, Mr. Nash.
Hey, once again, don't forget, you got to say hello to Lane's Merge. I mean, he's been a friend for years. Stay in your lane.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now to welcome you to Bitchin Baby Boomers.
Good evening, Bitchin Baby Boomer Army. And we're building every week. So if you like the show, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you ring the bell. This way you'll never miss an episode. And boy, we got an amazing show for you today. And we got Joe Silky coming up with the breaking news with interesting stories he found this week. What do you got, Joe?
Well, I found some really unique and interesting cell phone cases you can get.
Oh, yeah, I heard they discovered extraterrestrial life, but let's go with the cell phone covers. Yeah,
Don't strain. Don't strain yourself, Joe.
Yeah, well, this is a real news breaking story.
Yeah, cell phone
it's not
covers.
News breaking, but I mean, these are put out by a large Chinese company, and I thought you guys would find them interesting.
Direct from Wuhan. Yeah, okay.
Let's see it.
Okay. That's the frying pan model. That's actually a commercially made cell phone cover. And show the other side, Craig.
Oh, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. So, like, if you're a spy, you can cook your eggs and still spy on Siegfried if you get smart.
And the best part about it is how well it fits in your pocket.
Yeah, so if you get your cell phone wet and you make rice, you dry it out at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, there are like literally thousands of these made. I don't know who's using them, but they're made.
Okay. What the?
Okay. Then we have the Cleaver model,
which I should have a patent on.
Yeah,
you making a call?
It's the serial killer phone.
That's if you want to cut your conversation short.
Oh, Dad.
Oh, there you go. I bought this one from. I bought this one from my wife, so I could say, speaking to the banana without getting slapped.
I'm getting kind of aroused, gentlemen. I'm sorry.
It's just so stupid. Hold on. I got to make a call.
Is that going to be a running joke, John?
But it's very funny. It's a little hard to walk with it, but
Wait. What's this one?
Yeah, this is the strangest one. That's a gun phone. I mean, in today's world, who would want to have a phone that looked that close like a gun, especially when you put it down the front of your pants?
Republicans.
Yeah. There it is.
I'll take that phone. That's actually good, so I can shoot myself before I drunk text somebody.
Don't come handy in a traffic stop.
You can definitely get shot.
That's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. All right, enough of these phones because I got to go for this show that we have coming up right now. Yeah, this is almost hard for me to believe. Today it gives me great pleasure and honor to bring to the Bitchin Baby Boomers the voice of our generation. He basically co-wrote the soundtrack of us growing up. 2-time inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, once with the Hollies, once with Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Songwriter, performer, artist, humanitarian, world-renowned photographer, and somebody who's my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, Graham Nash.
All right.
Yeah.
How you do, everybody?
Good, Graham. It's great to see you. Let me introduce you to the guys. The guy with the hat, that's Mike Grief, biker comedian. In fact, he probably was in security at Aldemont.
Pleasure to meet you, Graham.
And then we have underneath it, we have Craig Mitchell, who's like our IT guy and knows all the stuff that we don't know. And then we have Joe Silky, who you've met many times. He's my lifelong friend. He's now a mind reader. So he probably knows what you're going to say before we even start.
I knew you were going to say that.
Can we get rid of Joe and just have Graham?
Great
All
scene,
right.
Graham.
We're going to start like from the beginning of your life, okay? I know that you were a small boy that grew up in Manchester, and yet you were born in Blackpool. And can you tell us why?
We actually lived in a small suburb of Manchester called Salford, Salford. And what happened during, this was 1942, of course, so World War II still had 3 years to go. And what happened is that all the pregnant ladies had to be evacuated outside of the bombing area. And where we lived was a bombing area because it was on the Manchester-Liverpool the ship canal, which brought all the goods and services to the north of England. And, of course, the Germans wanted to wipe that out, of course, to bring us down. So Blackpool was chosen because it was known that Hitler didn't want to bomb Blackpool because he wanted it for he wanted it as a holiday place for all his majors and all his top military leaders. And so I was born in Blackpool. And even though I was, evacuated from the bombing area after 2 weeks of being born in Blackpool, I was moved right back to the bombing area, which didn't make any sense whatsoever.
And it was the last time you ever bombed.
Sorry?
It was the last time you ever bombed. So while you were growing up, what was your first instrument that you learned to play?
Probably harmonica.
Wow.
Strangely enough, because it was cheap and, they were in every music store. But I got my first guitar, I think, when I was about 15. And basically what happened is that on my either 14th or 15th birthday, I really wanted a record player. I really wanted a guitar, but a bicycle, but we couldn't afford a bicycle, So my mother said, we can't afford a bike. So what else might you like? And so I said, I'd like a, cheap guitar. So I got a cheap guitar for my birthday and I never looked back.
Wow. Did anybody else in your family musical or?
Not at all.
First?
Wow. My dad used to whistle a lot, when he took me to the cinema and we would whistle, with each other. But no, nobody in my family was ended up being a musician.
Wow. So as a young kid growing up in Manchester, what age did you decide that you wanted to be a rock star?
On a Sunday evening was from Radio Luxembourg, which was a radio station that came actually from Luxembourg in Europe. And when the weather cooperated, you could hear it, the American top 40,
Wow.
the top 40 rock and roll songs in America. And that was Sunday night at 9:00. I'm supposed to be in bed, of course, got to get some sleep so I can go to school the next morning. But if I listened to my bedpost, I could hear the music from down below in the living room. And that's when I fell in love with the Everly Brothers and with Buddy Holly and with Elvis and with Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis. And that's when I decided that I wanted to do that. And here's what happened. In 1958, me and Alan Clark, lead singer from the Hollies, and my oldest friend, I've known him since I was 6. We were at a Catholic girls' school dance, and You Send Me by Sam Cooke had just finished playing, and of course that's a slow dance and all. Everybody's trying to feel each other up and stuff, and the teachers are coming up and trying to separate. They all cleared, and across the dance floor, me and Alan saw a friend of ours, Norma Timms, and Alan and I both wanted Norma Timms. So we go across the floor to get to her, and halfway across the floor, the most incredible music started to happen. And it was Bye Bye Love by the Everly Brothers.
Right.
And I had never, me and Alan used to sing in the school choir and two-part harmony, but their blend was a result of them being DNA matched. They were brothers. They had a connection. Me and Alan used to sing really well together. Me and Crosby and Stephen and Neil, of course, sang well together. But we'd never heard anything like the Everly Brothers. And that really started me wanting to make music that made me feel like that.
Wow. And you knew Alan Clark since he was, 6 years old or something?
6 years old, yeah. It's actually in the first verse of a new song that I'm writing about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you say the Everly Brothers were a big influence when you were growing up. And what were your parents supportive of you, like when you wanted to do this? Or
you see, I'm sure it's pretty similar here in the United States. But you're supposed to do what your dad did. You're supposed to do what your grandfather did. And what my dad and my grandfather did in England was either go down the mines or go to the mill. There were only two jobs that you really could have.
Right.
My mother and father never dissuaded me from my passion for music. They recognized that something turned me on, made me feel good, and wanted to support that. So if it hadn't have been for my mother and father, I wouldn't be talking to you today, because they encouraged me to be a musician and not just to get a gold watch when you're 75 and then you get fired and they get somebody younger and cheaper and stronger in your place. I never was able to fall for that gold watch theory because my mom and dad wouldn't let me fall for it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's wonderful when your parents are supportive. My parents were really supportive too. So at what age did you form the Hollies? How did that all come about?
We formed the Hollies in December of 1962 at the 2J's Coffee Bar. I used to work there occasionally. And that was the first time that the Hollies ever played together, right there at the 2J's Coffee Bar in Manchester, and December of 62. And of course, in March of the next year, in 63, we were down in London making records.
Wow. Yeah, and the Hollies were really big in England, right? Much more than we knew about them in America.
Yeah.
I've read things where some people say you had more hits than the Beatles in the beginning, right?
I doubt that very much, but we did have,
but you had a lot of top 10 songs, right?
Oh yeah, we had 15 when I was with them, and we were only together for 6 years.
Wow. So I remember I guess the biggest breakthrough song here in America was Bus Stop, right? And so Bus Stop came here, and then you came to America, right? I guess to tour, right?
Bus Stop was an interesting story.
Yeah, let's hear that one.
We used to have a manager called Michael Cohen, and he owned a clothing store in Stockport where I also used to work. It was called the Toggery.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
We're talking about the Bus Stop.
Oh, yeah.
And the Toggery.
Michael says to me one day, he says, I've got this neighbor in this next door. She's driving me crazy. She says she has this son and he writes songs. Do me a favor. Just go over there, pat the kid on the head and just get this woman off my back. Okay, so we go down to this kid's house. There's plastic still on the furniture, right. That kind of a house. And we met Graham Gouldman, and he was, I think, 14 or 15 years old. So we're the Hollies. We've had a couple of hits before Bus Stop. And so we said to the kid, okay, what have you got? He says, well, I've got this song. It goes like this. Bus stop, wet day, she's there, I say. And we know. I look at Alan, I look at Tony, and I go, we can turn this into a big hit. Can we have that song? He said, absolutely. I just finished it. I said, great, that's fantastic. We stood up to leave, and I turned around and said, wait a second. What else have we got? He said, well, okay. He said, I'd just written this song for my friend Herman, from Herman's Hermits. Peter Noon, from Herman's Hermits. He said, and it goes, no milk today, my love has gone away. I said, oh, what else you got? He said, well, it goes like this. Look through any window, yeah. Can we have that one? Absolutely. So we got two brilliant songs from this 15-year-old kid.
Wow.
Only because we had the courage to go down there and see what was going on.
And Peter Noon, the only English singer in the history that sings with an English accent.
Yeah, because we all sound with a kind of a mid-Atlantic.
Right.
You didn't want to sound as if you were copying on the Americans, but we did know that our accents might put people off. So there was this kind of mid-Atlantic singing that went on.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So when you came, basically I think you came to America with Bus Stop, right? Wasn't that like your first tour?
Yeah, 65 at the Paramount Theater here in Times Square.
So there's a rumor when you came out of LAX, you saw a palm tree.
I saw
a palm tree.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So can you tell him this story?
Well, that was when I'd met a friend, Cass Elliott.
Right.
Mama's and Papa's Cass. And she wanted Lou Adler to produce the Hollies. And she flew us all the way to Los Angeles to meet with Lou Adler. And that was the first time I'd ever been to L.A. And coming out of L.A. airport, there was this huge palm tree. I climbed, 15 feet up, and Alan Clark is down the bottom. And I say, Clarky, I'm never going back to England. I'm sorry. And that was my first impressions of Los Angeles.
Wow, that's cool.
That's cool.
So when you so basically, what was it like the first time, like you heard one of your songs on the radio? Do you remember that?
I do indeed. The Hollies were in London. We're going to do a show at the BBC, radio show. And we're walking towards the BBC, and there's two workmen putting in a shop window. And on the floor, next to their tools and stuff, they had this little tiny radio. And I think it was Just Like Me. Our first record came out of the radio, and it was the first time I'd ever heard my voice come out of a radio. That was an amazing feeling. I have hated my voice ever since.
You got the best voice ever. You got the most soothing voice in history. My favorite album of all time, so I listen to it religiously, is Songs for Beginners.
Is that right?
I absolutely love that album more than any album ever.
You know what I just did?
What?
In 2000, at the end of 2019, in September, I got a band together. Shane Fontaine, my guitar player, and Todd Caldwell, my keyboard player, put a band together, and we rehearsed for 3 days only. But we came out 4 shows. We did Songs for Beginners from start to finish live. I took an intermission. I came back and did Wild Tales, start to finish live.
Wow.
And that record comes out at the end of this year.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'll definitely be getting that. And it's so funny because Songs as a Beginner still sells
Yes.
tons of albums, right?
Yes, it does.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, those songs keep getting played, and they're actually marking my time here on Earth, and that's the idea of a new song that I've written called "Marking My Time."
Wow.
And I did it remotely, right?
Wow.
Right.
I put acoustic guitar track down and a separate rough voice track. I sent it to Shane in Los Angeles. He downloaded it. He put his guitars on and the bass. He sent it back to me. I sent it to Lubbock, Texas, to Todd Caldwell's brother, Toby, who put the drums on. They sent it to Todd, who put the keyboards on, and then sent it all to me, where I put my final vocal on and then mixed it. So remotely.
Yeah, it's funny. I have some friends from Nashville, and apparently in Nashville they do that a lot. They all kind of know each other, and hey, here's my new song I'm working on. Hey, I got a harmonica I can add to it. I got this, and they come out with some amazing collaborations.
Very interesting. What you've got to do, of course, is try and make sure that it feels like all the people are in the same room.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they're thousands of miles apart.
Wow.
So let's bring to the Mama cast and how you met the boys, David and Steven. And so let's.
In 1967, I think it was, the Hollies had done a show, and we were gathering afterwards with that, with a plastic glass of awful wine, and you're trying to remember the promoter's wife's name, all that kind of movie stuff afterwards. When this little kid came up to us, and he said, "What are you doing after this thing?" I said, I took a step back. I said, "I don't know. What are you doing?" So he said, "Well, I've got these friends, and they're recording at Western Studios down the street. Do you want to go?" And I said, "Who is it?" And he said, "Well, it's my friends. They're called the Mamas and the Papas." Now, I'd seen the first album cover. I saw what Michelle looked like. And so I was very interested in going down to meet with people. When I went to the studio, Denny and John and Michelle were putting a vocal on, so I couldn't go in there. But Cass was outside the studio door. And so I got to meet Cass first, and we were talking a bit. And within 30 seconds, I had her crying, which was not my purpose. But what she'd done is she asked me what I thought. She knew that, I'd had some relationship with the Beatles, and I kind of knew some of them slightly. And she asked me what John Lennon would think of their music. And knowing a little about John, I said, well, he'll probably put you down at first, until he felt comfortable enough to let you into his personal space, And that's when she started crying, because I didn't know that she had a big crush on John. Right. So I'm going, and I get myself out of that predicament. And she says, so what are you doing tomorrow? I said, what is it with you Americans? You always want to know what we're doing tomorrow. I mean, come on. He said, well, I want to introduce you to this friend of mine. So we were staying at the Knickerbocker Hotel in Hollywood. And she picked me up in her Porsche, with a convertible Porsche, and she drove me about 10, 15 minutes up into Laurel Canyon, which, if you know anything about the area, it's this beautiful countryside that's 10 minutes from Hollywood Boulevard, And she drove me to this house, and there was another convertible Porsche in the garage. I go upstairs, and there's this kind of an empty room, except there's a couch, and on the couch is lying this kid in blue jeans and no shoes and a striped T-shirt, and he has got a shoebox lid of grass on his knee, and he's shaking them, and while he's looking at me, right, with eye contact, he is separating the stems and the seeds and the grass.
That's a professional.
Let me guess who this could be.
Yeah, this was David Crosby. And my life has never been the same ever since the day I met him. It's never been the same. And one day he says, Peter Tork he's got his house up on Mulholland, and he's giving a party tonight. Do you want to go? You should want to go, because I want to introduce you to this friend of mine. So we go up to it and bang on the door and open the door, and of course this big cloud of smoke comes out of Peter's house. And we go in there, and there's this kid pounding the shit out of the piano, playing great boogie-woogie, great left hand, really great groove. And I said, wow, that kid's far out. And he goes, yep, that's who I want to introduce you to. That's Stephen Stills.
Wow, man.
There we are.
And a legend is born.
Jeez.
Unreal.
Well, it's safe to say that you were the glue of that group for many years.
Only because I wanted the music. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you got to understand, people in England had been through 2 world wars within 80 years from the same enemy, you know. And once you've done that, once you've overcome that and gotten back to life, you know, small problems are ridiculous to us. You know, your coffee not being quite the right temperature is not a really important problem.
Now, wait a minute.
So one day I left London and I flew to Los Angeles, and I wanted to be with Joni for 2 or 3 days because we'd met each other and fallen in love. When I got to the parking lot from the yellow cab, I've got my guitar and my small suitcase. And there's other words. There's other people talking from Joan's house, and I wasn't quite happy about that. But it was David and Stephen, and they were having dinner with Joni. So I go in there, you know, and we're all loving and hugging and stuff, you know, and we smoke a big one, of course. And David says, "Hey, Stephen, play Willie, that song that we were just doing." See, what was going on is that the Byrds had thrown David out, the Buffalo Springfield had broken up. And I wasn't very happy with the Hollies because of King Midas in Reverse not getting into the top 5 like our normal stuff, and them not trusting me. Crosby saved my life. I mean, when he came and he heard me play Marrakesh Express, and he knew that the Hollies didn't like that song, he said, "It's them that's crazy." No, you're not crazy. They are. Come on over, you know. So anyway.
I heard that on the radio yesterday, believe it or not, as I was driving along Marrakesh Express. I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you, and I was thinking about, it's just a side thing. I was thinking about some questions I wanted to ask you, and all of a sudden Marrakesh Express came on. And I just go, this is a great song.
And that's the story of my life. Seriously. So Stephen played with David singing a song called "You Don't Have to Cry," which was on the first Crosby, Stills and Nash. Right. So they got to the end of it, and I said, "Great song, Stephen. That's really a great song. Do me a favor, just sing it one more time." So they looked at each other, and they shrugged, and they played it one more time. They got to the end of it, and I said, "Okay, I'm not nuts. Play it one more time." And they played it one more time. In the first 2 times they played it, I'd learned my words. I'd learned my part. I knew that what body language was going on with Crosby. I knew when Stephen was going to start a vocal line on how long he would extend that vocal line. I'm good at what I do. I've been a harmony singer for years, right? Within 40 seconds of this 3-part happening, we had to stop and laugh. It was ridiculous. I mean, the Hollies and the Springfield and the Byrds were decent harmony bands, but this was something completely different. We had never heard this blend before, and it happened within 45 seconds of us singing together, and Joni was the only witness.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's cool.
So I remember you when we were all working together, you'd be harmonized with David, and you could get David to sing anything you wanted him to sing. And you would sing, like, remember we'd be in the bus and you would go, "I got you to sing Looking for a One-Eyed Girl." And he'd go, no, I didn't. And then they'd play it back and he'd go, "Oh, I guess I did."
Yeah. Crosby, he never learns the words to any song. He's just a great lip reader. And fast, of course.
And Stephen, too. I mean, he sings in tongues.
Stephen is a great... And that was the problem, you know. When we made that first CSN record, Stephen played most of the instruments. Of course, right. Crosby and I played rhythm guitar on Lady of the Island and Marrakesh and Long Time Gone and Guinevere, etc. But Stephen played lead guitar, rhythm guitar, bass guitar, B3 organ, piano, percussion. So when we finished the record, we knew it was going to be a hit. So if we knew it was going to be a hit, we knew we'd have to go on the road. So if we were going to go on the road, how are we going to go on the road when one guy played most of the instruments? So we knew we had to get somebody else.
Right. So it must have been really tough. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. It must have been really tough, like when you heard this incredible sound, right? Like that was magic, I guess, just magic. And then now you have to go back and leave your lifelong friend in the Hollies. That must have been tough. Because, I mean, I had a manager for years that I just had to leave, and it was tough, you know?
Yeah, it was tough. But I'd heard that sound, and I wanted it desperately. And I knew I would have to go back to England and undo my entire life. I'd have to leave the Hollies. I'd have to leave my equipment. I'd have to leave whatever family I had, my two sisters, and I'd have to go and follow this sound. But it was that instinct, my intuition, once again, following my heart, once again, doing what my mother and father taught me. Follow your heart. You're a good person. You'll be okay. And I took an enormous chance. People thought I was crazy.
Yeah, they must have, because, I mean, financially, the Hollies were doing really well. So you're leaving everything to go for an unknown, right?
That's right. But that's the power of that music.
Right. Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to have to segue in because I am obsessed with Woodstock because I went to Woodstock to see you, which is just, I mean, I think I told you that many times on the bus. It just blew me away to be going to Woodstock to see Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and being in a bus with you guys was just
and Young. Don't forget Neil.
Yeah. Well, that's my question. Okay. Every time they talk about Woodstock, they always go, it was their second gig. What was the first gig? No one ever hears about the first gig.
The Chicago Auditorium the night before.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
With Joni opening for us.
Wow.
How ballsy is that?
Yeah. So that was my next question. Okay. So I remember at Woodstock, and not that I remember it, but I watched videos.
I remember Woodstock.
They introduced Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. But yet there's no pictures of Neil Young. There's no video of Neil Young. And why?
Well, they never even announced Neil. They just announced Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and we came out and did Sweet Judy Blue Eyes. Unbeknownst to us, meaning me and David and Stephen, Neil didn't want to be filmed. He wanted it to be a live concert and not have to be banging into cameramen or, you know, he didn't want to be filmed. And that's what he said. And he told them before we went on, no filming. But we didn't know that.
Wow.
So that's one of the reasons why I knew that Neil was one of my strangest friends.
Well,
another strange thing, you mentioned it before, John, so I'll tell you the story. I'm up at Neil's ranch, and he says to me, hey, I just finished this album called Harvest. Do you want to hear it? Now, I'm at Neil's, right? So I'm expecting to go into a studio with big speakers and get blown away. No. This is Neil, remember? So he looks at me, he says, get in the boat. And he had this beautiful pond with hundreds of red-winged blackbirds on it. Beautiful place. I said, get in the boat? He said, yes, get in the boat. I said, okay, so I'm figuring he's got a little cassette player or something that he wants me to hear it on, right? You know. So he rows out. What he had done, he had wired his entire house as the left speaker and his entire barn as the right speaker. And he played Harvest loud. We got to the end. Neil carefully rose into the bank, the pond, you know, bank, right? And Elliot Mazer, who produced Harvest, comes down and he says, so Neil, how was it? And Neil says, more barn.
I just remember being at a sound check when we did the thing for Greenpeace. And you said to me, watch this, you're not going to see this again. And Neil walked in, plugged in his guitar, and went, this got a 15-foot lead, I need a 12. And just blew into the microphone and goes, it's 112 volts, I need 115. And it was just like, and Crosby's going, that's like plugging a lamp into an extension cord and saying it's not the same brightness.
No, Neil's like that. I mean,
yeah, he's a real tech guy, right?
He's a real tech guy. He wants it right when he's playing music, and God bless him. I mean, he wants, you know, He once stopped a sound check and said, "Who put a 20-foot lead in my guitar instead of my 10-foot?" And I said to him, I said, "You can hear the difference between a 20-foot lead and a 10-foot lead?" He goes, "Yeah, I can."
Wow. Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. So this is a question.
New catchphrase for my life: more barn. I need more barn.
Somebody made a T-shirt of it. I have one in my closet.
So, this is questions that people want to know about. Like, what was it like being backstage at Woodstock?
We don't remember too much about it because we were in John Sebastian's tent smoking.
Yeah. But was it just like madness, like super groups everywhere, right?
Yeah, but we weren't. There weren't super groups then. I mean, they were well known. I mean,
right?
La 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 la, and Richie Havens and John Sebastian and all. But we weren't super groups at that point. Maybe Woodstock made us, but
yeah. I'll tell you who really had it going there too was Sly and the Family Stone.
Yes, indeed.
They kind of understood the whole performing for a big crowd show business thing.
That was one of the things that was difficult. I mean, can you imagine playing Guinevere with one acoustic guitar and two voices for 500,000 people?
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it was so. This is the other question because I experienced Woodstock, as you know. But like when you were there performing, did you realize at that time that it was going to be this big iconic event, or did you just think it was just something cool, or did you know? Because I didn't realize how special it was until a couple of days later, once I got home and started thinking about it. This was an amazing thing I just went through.
We knew that it was going to be a monstrous event once we walked out on stage and saw those people.
Yeah,
I mean that because at that point, that was the largest crowd of people I'd ever been in front of in my life, but to see them and to feel their energy. That's when we knew. That's when I knew that this was going to be a very, very interesting concert and probably a big part of history.
Yeah, I mean, pretty amazing thing. I mean, like you guys, with songs like Chicago, For Dead in Ohio, Military Madness, Immigration Man, Long Time Gone. It was really like the soundtrack of my generation growing up. That whole like tune in, drop out. Right. Generation,
Well, don't forget, Ohio had not been written by that time.
Right.
But yes, I understand what you're saying.
So this is a thing I remember. Like I remember Military Madness, right? At the time, this is how. I mean, I know that song for you must have been very personal because it's really about you growing up, but yet it takes on another meaning to other people that aren't really listening to the lyrics the same way. And that's what's so beautiful about it, right?
But that's what's so great about songwriting.
Right.
I have to take something that's happened to me, and if it happens to me, I realize that I'm just normal, and therefore there's millions of us that are feeling this same thing. So everybody brings their own story to whatever it is they're listening to, but an artist has to make sure that what you're saying can apply to millions instead of just one person.
Right, because like Military Madness talks about you going to Blackpool, your father's in the army, your mother's having you, and yet so many people were saying, this is a song about Vietnam. You know what I mean? It's like Military Madness is, which is so amazing, which is just an amazing thing to have that power, to do that.
I learned with the Hollies how to make, to write a tune that you couldn't forget if you heard it twice. But, with the Hollies, whose doggy is that?
That's my doggy. There must be a cat walking.
Good. So that's the art of a songwriter, to make something that happens to you apply to everybody.
So two of the stories that I think these guys should know is the one about Just a Song Before We Go. I love that story.
I was in Maui in the Hawaiian Islands. I'd taken a week's vacation. We were in the studio. And I was at the home of a friend of mine called Spider. Okay, he was a drug dealer. Okay,
no, not Spider.
It was only grass. It wasn't anything heavy. And he was a kind of a friend of mine. And I had about an hour and a half to kill before I had to go catch a plane back to go back to the studio to record with David and Stephen. And as I got up, he said, "Hey, you're supposed to be some big songwriter. I bet you can't write a song before you go."
Oh, man.
I said, "What?"
Wow.
He said, "In fact, I'll bet you $500 you can't write a song just before you go."
Wow.
I said, $500? He goes, "Yeah." I wrote it in less than an hour.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh my God.
And the truth is, it was the biggest single hit that CSN ever had. And quite frankly, if I'd have known it was going to be such a big hit, I'd have written a better song. But
I don't know if that's possible. That's a credible song.
Is that what you want to say? Easy to get burned? Is that because you got the money?
no, I had just taken the Concorde from Paris to Washington, traveling at the speed of sound, twice the speed of sound. That's, if you fuck up at twice the speed of sound, you're not going to get burned.
It's going to leave a mark.
And then I think this is the sweetest story is about Our House, how that song came about.
From a very ordinary moment.
Yeah.
A really ordinary moment. It was spring of '69. And in Los Angeles, it was a miserable day. It was cold. It was kind of foggy. It was rainy. It was an awful day. I'd taken Joni to breakfast at Art's Deli on Ventura Boulevard. And going back to John's car, we passed an antique store. And of course, as with most antique stores that look inviting, you're looking in the window. And Joni saw a vase that she wanted to buy. And it was reasonably cheap, and it was about 10 inches high with some hand-painted flowers around the edge. And she bought it. So, as I said, it was a miserable day. So when we got to her house in Laurel Canyon, got through the front door, I said, "Hey, John, why don't I light a fire and you put some flowers in that vase that you bought today?"
Wow.
I'm halfway there.
Wow. That's amazing.
So Joni went out to try and get some kind of weedy kind of flowers, spring flowers for the vase, which meant that she wasn't at her piano, which meant that I was. And our house happened very quickly, about an hour and a half.
Wow.
I was in love with Joni Mitchell. Holy shit. I mean, just think about that for a second.
We all were, but you were with her. We weren't. We were just in love with her from afar.
Yeah, well, in a way, I was in love with her from afar also. But it was a very interesting couple of years of my life. Once you've been in love with Joni and you recognize what a genius she is, you're always in love with her forever. Every birthday for the last 50 odd years, I've sent flowers.
Oh, nice, really nice. So on a lot of these songs that are like, is there any group collaboration, or do you say, I have an idea for a song, and then you bring it to them and they go, well, we do this with music? Or do you ever, all of you sit down at once and say?
No, basically we all write for ourselves. We don't write for the band. But if I play them a new song and they say, "Oh, I know what I can do in the chorus," or Stephen says, "Boy, I've got a great intro for this," then we're off and running. If I play them a song and they kind of walk out the room, you'll never hear that song again. It almost happened with Teach Your Children. I played Stephen my original demo of Teach Your Children, which I made just on my own, and he looked at me and said, "That's a really good song. Don't ever play it like that again." I say, "What?" He said, "You sound like Henry VIII. No, this is how it should go." And he put that great Stephen Stills right hand looking thing he does so brilliantly, and he turned it into a hit.
Yeah. He was an interesting fella.
Yes, indeed. Still is.
So So I guess now go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, when I'd learned with the Hollies to write a melody that you couldn't forget if you heard it a couple of times, I realized that my words had to be better, and so that's how my songwriting improved. So let's quickly go to a song. I was doing an album called Songs for Survivors in 2002, 19 years ago. Russ Kunkel, one of the best drummers in the world, and my dear friend, we wrote a song called Dirty Little Secret about what happened in Tulsa in 1921. Now, we wrote this song 19 years ago. I had a friend, Jeff Shear. He did the animated movie of my song "Teach Your Children" on YouTube. In the last couple of years, he animated my song, and it's just stunningly beautiful. And I hope you got it. I sent it to you.
Yeah, we do have it. We do have it, and yes, we do have everything. We got it all straightened out.
Why don't we play it once we wrap up our little talk here?
Yeah, we definitely will play that. I just wanted to talk really quickly, one more thing before we get to that. Okay. You're also a world-renowned photographer. And
I've been a photographer longer than I've been a musician.
Right. And I remember you and I, because you know that I do photography, and I remember having hours of conversations on the bus with you about digital is the new future. And I was going, I'll never leave film. And you're like, no, and it's just so ironic how I don't think I've shot film since I can remember.
It's why I saw the digital. I saw it all coming. That's why I started Nash Editions to be able to print, photographers' work on paper. Yeah, and the first printer I ever had is actually now in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Wow. But yeah, I like taking pictures. I like to be invisible, though. I don't like it. I've had so many.
King of the candid shots, right? Well, I never want to see anybody taking. Right.
I know when people are pointing a camera at me, I want to look like James Dean. I want my best side, whichever the fuck that is, Right. But you always want to look good, and I like to be invisible. I don't like it when people know that I'm taking their image. But I'm working on a brand new book, and it will be out this year also of my images.
Nice. Wow. That's crazy. And also, you're a big activist, anti-nuke guy, right?
Why not? It's madness. It's like, setting a forest fire to cook an egg. Yeah. It's insane. We all know what the weaknesses of the nuclear program is, and the main weakness is what are we doing with all the stuff that's left over? What are we doing with all this nuclear waste? We still, to this day, don't know what we're doing with it, and it's still being produced every day.
And stuff has half-lives of 144 and 250 years. It's like, what do you do? Yeah, more longer than that.
Some of them for 10,000 years.
Yeah.
We can't even keep a government in for 4 years here.
Right.
10,000 years, nobody will be able to understand what we're talking about.
No. All right, I got one last question, and then we're going to go to the video.
Okay.
I don't know how to put this. I mean, I know that you write from your heart, right? And and it's so obvious when you hear you perform. Is there ever, like, if you're going to write something political, right? Do you ever get to the point where you go, I don't know if I should say that, because it's that line, I guess, you got to walk?
Okay. Listen to this new one.
Okay.
I know you're lying, 'cause your lips are moving, but your eyes give you away. I hear your voice, it sounds so soothing, but the truth is getting in your way. You're trying to rewrite recent history when the MAGA tourists, took the hill. You will not stand up and face the music. 'cause a golden idol controls you still. Golden idol shines in the sun, blinding everyone to the truth you try to deny. Tell me why? That's the first two verses.
Oh man, thank you.
I feel like I just witnessed history.
Oh, man. Goose flesh.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Well, I think we've taken up enough of your time, and I so appreciate you. And I just got to tell you what a great guy this is. When I was on tour with them, and I had a really rough night where the crowd just hated me, and I walked off stage, and David Crosby grabbed me in a bear hug and said, "Man, they hated you." And I go, "Thanks." And he goes, "No, they really did." And I walked into the dressing room, and Graham came in and said, "I really hurt for you as an artist. You should never have to go through this crap. From now on, I'm going to come out and introduce you." He would come out every night and introduce me. And there's not many headliners in the world that would ever do that. And I owe everything to you for that. And I thank you once again for my high school reunion when you posted that video. We got 100 people the next day.
Fantastic.
And I went to the reunion. I was like a hero. You know, Graham Nash. So once again, we'll thank you now, and then we'll go out because I know you got stuff to do, and we're gonna play your video right now unless you want to stick around for the end of it. And that's totally up to you. You decide, or do you want to just end it and play it, or do you want to?
Why don't we say goodnight and end it, and we'll be just fine.
All right, Graham, I can't thank you enough. I mean, this has really meant a lot to me, and I know to the guys. And
it's been such an honor to meet you.
Thank you, everybody.
It's a pleasure
again, Graham.
An honor.
Thank you.
And this video, I should tell you, was also premiered at this year's Tribeca Film Festival.
Yes.
So the fact that we have this on the show is really another great honor.
Oklahoma, June of 21. Someone set the night on fire. Lost a lot of people as the day begun. Who lit the funeral pyre? On an elevator in the heart of town, someone made somebody scream. Black and white, going up and down. Who's gonna lose the dream? Dirty little secrets. Headlines printed in the daily news. Awake the sleeping rage inside. Disarm the people, keep them all confused. Kill before they turn the tide. Dirty little secret going round, whispering from ear to ear, burning down the very heart of town. Nobody shed a tear. Dirty little secrets. Dirty little secrets. Look up to the sky. Your tears fall from the clouds. But Greenwood, don't you cry. Just shout it right out loud. It's such a dirty little secret. Getting so much darker every day. It's hard to rise above it all.
Tune in next week to more Bitchin Baby Boomers.